Great. Well, hello everyone. We are live again, coming from a very sunny, hot London, and I'm not sure what the weather is in South Africa, but probably very different. But I'm here with Marylyn Scott from the African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg in South Africa, and I'm really, really pleased this week to be able to speak to her. I had the pleasure of visiting the African Leadership Academy with the international ACAC in October last year, and I found it a really inspiring and indeed humbling place. So I'm really pleased that Marilyn has agreed to join us today and talk about university admissions from that perspective, and also just tell us a bit more about the African Leadership Academy. So Marilyn, thank you very much for joining us.
Jason, thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure. It was so wonderful having you on campus in October. And in fact, you came about 1 week after I had just started in that position. So now I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to re-engage with you. It is technically winter here in South Africa, but today happened to be a beautiful day. So maybe about 60 degrees Fahrenheit or so.
Okay, I have to admit, I don't know what Fahrenheit means.
I'm still getting used to centigrade, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's okay, say Fahrenheit for the Americans listening, that's fine. But you are the college counselor at ALA.
Yes, I am the Director of University Guidance, and I have been, as I said, here since October. Prior to ALA, I actually spent about 15 years on the college admission side. So I actually worked at a few universities, most recently Bucknell University in Pennsylvania. Prior to that, Chatham University, also in Pennsylvania. And in Maine, I worked at Bates College, and before that, Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts. Wow. So I've been around the world, not the world, the US a little bit in terms of college admissions.
So you were always on the admissions side of the desk though, is that right?
For the last 15 years, yes, I absolutely was. I had many lives before that, Jason, and I don't even know if we'll have time to get into that.
I hope so. I hope we get to talk about them later, but maybe let's talk about the professional things first, and then we can get onto those things.
Sure. But I really looked forward to this position because for many years, I've been thinking about moving to the other side of the desk, and how could I use my knowledge that I gained about how do colleges do things on that side, and how can I help high school students as they navigate the college search process. So it has been quite a steep learning curve, I have to say, but I'm blessed to work with some tremendous colleagues who have been helping me to learn about what it's like to be on this side. And ALA is just chock full of some amazing students who make it easy to represent them to colleges and universities worldwide. So I'm really honored to be here.
Well, we'll get on to your students in a moment, because I imagine we'll be talking about them for quite a while. And as I alluded to, they were quite inspiring people when I went to visit, and I can only wish that all students around the world were that good. But what made you move from? So did you move from America to South Africa, or was there anywhere in between that?
No, I was born in Jamaica. Then my parents moved to the States when I was very young. And then I spent most of my formative years in the States and my professional life as well. I took a 2-year stint and moved to Korea. And I worked in Korea, working for the Ministry of Education there for a couple of years. And then I returned to the States. And so most recently Bucknell. And then immediately after I left Bucknell, I came here.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get at is what made you make the leap from America to South Africa?
It really was the mission and the vision of African Leadership Academy. If you all have the opportunity to go online and to just take a look at this incredible institution, it will be very easy for you to understand why I made the leap. This is a place where they have the mission of developing the next generation of ethical entrepreneurial leaders for the African continent. And so we have admission officers here who go throughout all of Africa, and they comb hill and dale, mountains and valleys, trying to find some amazing students to bring them here. So they identify these students, they bring them here to this wonderful institution. We have them here for 2 years, where they will encounter not only Cambridge A-levels, but they also do a very specific African Leadership Academy curriculum. And then after 2 years, we connect them, right? So we develop them for 2 years through an amazing program. And then we connect them with universities and colleges worldwide, and professional opportunities as well. So when I saw what the Academy was doing, I wanted to be a part of it. I'll actually be honest with you, some of the students that I mentored at Bates College, this is how I heard about the African Leadership Academy so many years ago. I think ALA has hired at least 3 of my former students from Bates. And what is this African Leadership Academy? And the more I started to research about them, and I met some of the leaders of the institution at NACAC conferences in the States, I just said, I want to be a part of what these folks are doing. The mission, it's huge, it's audacious, it's very bold, but it's daily inspiring as well.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about the history of ALA then. When was it founded originally?
So ALA was actually founded in 2008, so not that long ago. They just recently celebrated their decennial, and it was founded with that mission. So there were 4 founders. I know 2, shameful, I should know all 4, but Chris Bradford is our Chris Bradford is our CEO, and he is still here at the organization. Fred Swanica, it was his brainchild, their brainchild, when Fred was actually in graduate school in the States. And so they have since, it's just blossomed over the time, and we continue to grow our enrollment numbers. This place, in terms of selectivity, Jason, it's very similar to Ivy League schools in that the admission rate is about 5 to 7% in any given year. So we have students who are applying to ALA from all over the continent who desire to have this strong education that we have here.
And so what are your admission requirements then for ALA? What sort of student do you look for?
So first and foremost, students must be academically prepared. We want students who are, because ALA has a very tough curriculum. As I mentioned, we do Cambridge A-levels, but we also have our own ALA signature curriculum, which involves African studies, writing and rhetoric, as well as, oh my, I just blanked on the third one, it will come back to me, but with these 3, entrepreneurial leadership, my goodness. So we're looking for students who come to us already academically prepared and ready to succeed, whatever their primary exam or schooling has been. Then we are looking for students who have a heart for the continent of Africa. Because of the mission of the organization, it's very important that students are able to articulate well why they are passionate about the continent, in what areas they hope to make a difference. And so we're looking for that Africanist mindset as well. And then we're looking for students who have a great deal of creativity, because our signature entrepreneurial leadership course forces students to actually create student enterprises here on campus and run them. We do that because we feel that if students are able to start small and envision starting businesses and corporations at a small level. They will know how to hire people. They will know how to create business plans. Then they can do that on a much larger scale once they graduate from university and return to their home countries. So that is another requirement, that after students go out and get their college education, wherever it may be in the world, that shortly thereafter they will return and use the skills and the knowledge that they have gained abroad, and they will use it to develop their continent.
Wow, it's a wonderful concept. And I feel sorry for the students who desperately want to go and can't get in, but I guess that's always the case with really selective schools and universities. How do you go about finding these? Now, you said that you had people who go and scour the continent for the brightest minds, but how do you even organize a task like that with a continent so vast?
Well, we have a really dynamic admissions team, the way that colleges have admissions teams, and they are assigned regions of the continent where they will go. We have a really strong network with the Holly network, so high achieving, low income. And so many of our partners through Holly will identify for us some of the strong students that they have found in high school, and they will recommend that we look at some of these students. And so many students and parents find us on their own. Often it's through word of mouth, but then our admission officers, they go on recruiting trips, and in various parts of the continent, they will hold recruitment events where they will engage with students and their family members. And then that's how they will identify. Then students submit an application, and then we have in-house a team of leaders, Dean Hatim El Tayeb, as well as others who will read their applications and make the final decisions. Again, very similar to the college application process. We have an early decision round as well. So,
well, while we're talking about that, what are your deadlines then? Just in case anyone's listening thinking, oh, I know someone who might be good for that, or maybe I want to go and do that. How can they apply, and what are your deadlines?
To be honest with you, I don't know the deadlines off the top of my head, but I will say this: go to www.africanleadershipacademy.org, and you will find all of the information there about how to apply to this amazing institution.
Brilliant. It sounds amazing. So these students, when you see them, you're obviously trying to help them apply to university towards the end of the 2 years at ALA. Or I guess throughout the whole 2 years, you're helping them think about where to apply. Because many of them are low-income students, is finding scholarships or financial aid a big part of what you do?
It absolutely is. And I will say this: when students apply to ALA, it is a place that is need blind. So we do not consider a family's ability to pay. And we have an excellent team in terms of our development officers who are able to secure scholarships for students to attend ALA. We do have some students who pay the full freight of tuition, room and board, and then we have everyone must contribute something. So there is a sliding scale, again, very similar to how colleges do it, to enable every student who desires to have an ALA education to do so, regardless of their family's financial circumstances. But we do have full paying students, and then we have low income students as well. But you are absolutely right that a large percentage of our students are low income, and therefore the challenge is, how do we engage with admission officers and vice presidents of enrollment and presidents and others at the institution so that they will see how brilliant our students are, and they are willing to make that investment, not only in their futures, but quite honestly, in making an investment in the future of the African continent as well.
And what sort of universities do students go on to? Now, I imagine they go worldwide, but where do the majority end up going, if there is a majority?
The majority of students do tend to go to the United States because there are plenty scholarships that happen to be there, but we have students who go all over. So we have students who will go to Japan and Hong Kong and Qatar, as well as the UK. Many will go to college on the African continent as well. So our students are bold and they are fearless in that they left their families somewhere between the ages of 16 to 19 years old to come to South Africa for this education. And they are willing to go where the opportunities are available. But I would say about 60% of our students or so tend to go to the States.
Okay. So if it was founded in 2008, then I'm just doing some mental calculations. So students must have first started going off to university in around 2010, and the
Yes.
first ones must have been graduating about 2014.
That's correct.
So you've now got roughly 6 years of students who've graduated university. What are they doing now? Where have they gone?
Students have gone so many places. In fact, I would encourage everyone, if you're really curious about some of our amazing alumni, we have a campaign currently going, and it's called Redefining Expectations. And our production team has done an immensely fantastic job of capturing some of the stories of, I believe, 12 alumni who are doing amazing things in the world. And so students have gone on to graduate school. They're now coming back to the continent in large percentages, just as we had hoped that they would. And they're making contributions in every sector imaginable. We have people who are doing scientific research. We have people who are in the entertainment industry. We have students who are working on artificial intelligence programs. And so the broad array of things that our alumni are doing now, it really is astounding. But it's because we had those college partners who made that initial investment in the students, and they believed in the mission of ALA. And so the students went on and did amazing work, and now they've returned, and the continent is benefiting as a result of that.
Yeah, and I imagine it must now be easier to convince universities to accept these students now that they see what these students are actually capable of and what the mission of the school is. Do you find that now?
I don't know if it's
queuing up to take students now.
I don't know if it's necessarily easier, because the landscape of college admissions, as you well know, is changing, and the competition is stiff, and there are so many highly qualified students all around the continent. We have a small subset of them here, but we're competing with international students all around the world for these coveted positions and scholarships at some dynamic universities all around the globe. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's easier, especially now as we head into this new recruitment cycle, given the challenges that COVID-19 has brought to many colleges and universities. So I anticipate that it's going to be more difficult than ever, perhaps. But we are doing the very best that we can to get the word out about how incredibly dynamic these students are and what they're able to contribute to the world at large.
Okay, great. And so obviously you must have a cohort who are expecting to go off this September off to university. So where are some of the universities that they are going to?
Oh my goodness, all over. My goodness, you're putting me on the spot here, Jason. Let me think. We do have some students who are obviously going off to the Ivy Leagues, right? And University of Chicago. We have students who are going to the African Leadership University in Rwanda, African Leadership College in Mauritius. We have students who are going to IE in Spain. We have students who are going to Edinburgh in the UK. We have students going to Hong Kong Baptist University and Hong Kong University and Franklin and Marshall, and the names are just, I mean, I'm forgetting people, and please forgive me. I should have had a list printed out prior to this call.
Those are some great places. So I think most schools would be quite jealous of that list already. So that's really impressive. And they must be really excited about going off. So what would you say, if you were going to give some tips to students, because one of the things that we're always trying to do in admissions is trying to explain to students that they have to show their best selves to the university, and they can't just hope to do really well in their exams and standardized tests and think that's enough. They've also got to show what they're like as a person. And I think when students see the sort of students that are coming out of ALA, they might realize some of the sort of competition around the world that they are up against at some of these very selective universities. But on that note, have you got some maybe tips for students who are applying now anywhere in the world about what they can do to actually highlight their best qualities and give them an edge in applying to university?
Honestly, I think one of the most important things that students can do is to tell their story and tell it effectively through the application process. And that can be largely through the personal statement. I strongly encourage our students to not just write it once, but to go through several drafts if needed, to present a very strong and compelling story about who they are and what they have to offer. I think that many, having been on the college side for 15 years, I can tell you that those personal statements really do matter to the colleges that place a high priority on them. And the more that students can do to share who they are through that personal statement and the subsequent essays as well, I think that that's one great way. It's really difficult to say what is a tip or trick. There's no silver bullet. A lot of it will depend on what the colleges are seeking. For those colleges that do offer interviews, whether they be, if they call them optional, I would say do the interview. Don't consider it an optional way, particularly in this year where we have seen that so many universities that we never thought would be test optional are now becoming test optional. You have to find other ways to think about how to tell your story. And I would say that the interview is a fantastic way in which you can do so. So I would say take the time to understand who you are and to practice telling your story with others as well. Because for those colleges that do value that aspect of the college application, that's going to be key for them. Another thing that you can do is to understand the institutions well. I think many students will do a generic why X college essay, and it is easy to spot when they don't talk about things that are particularly salient to that institution. So if, for example, an institution has a Jan Plan program and you don't mention that anywhere, you just talk in generalities. Oh, I'm hoping to go to your university because you have a small student to faculty ratio. It's a lovely college campus. These are things that are generic. If you can cut and paste the name of multiple universities, you need to do a better job at showcasing that. And I think in this year, for colleges that do ask that question, why do you want to come to my university? I would strongly encourage all of you out there to think about what is different, what is distinctive about that particular college, and tailor your essays accordingly. It does take more work because you just want to cut and paste so that you can get all of those applications out there. But I guarantee you that seasoned admission officers can spot that very easily, and it will not be as compelling. So those are just a few recommendations that I would make. I wouldn't necessarily call them tricks of the trade or anything like that, just basic common sense when applying to college.
Well, they're really good tips though, and so thank you for them. I really like what you said about students should practice telling their story to other people, because I think one of the things that's quite hard for 16, 17-year-olds to get used to is writing honestly about themselves and opening up about themselves to other people. Particularly British students, I should say, really struggle with this. But I think any students, it's understandable. They're going through a period of their life where there's a big transition, and then you're asking them to be honest to other people about themselves. And one of the things I really liked when I visited ALA was, rather than being on a panel and answering questions, it was being in the audience, watching the students on a panel answer questions about themselves. And not only was it a really great way to learn about them, I also thought this is fantastic for the students because they get really practiced at talking about themselves and telling their story honestly and eloquently. So I think things like that are really good.
And for you counselors who are out there, if I may, I would recommend doing that, putting your students on a panel and asking them. So yes, you could do it individually, one-on-one to schedule those interviews. But I think when you do have that panel discussion, you're hearing how other students have answered it, and you can critique for yourself. Ooh, that's a great tip. I want to remember to do that when I do my personal statement, or when I have my interview with colleges and universities, or when I'm asked to be on a panel. So whether or not that is a realistic expectation that they will be on a panel somewhere at the age of, I don't know, 16 to 20 years old, it doesn't matter. I think it's really great practice to put students in that position. And if you don't have another audience, have their peers be the audience members and provide them with some constructive feedback about things that they did well and other areas that could be improved.
Yeah, those are great tips. So we've got a question here, actually, a somewhat specific question, which is, so a counsellor has asked that he's been contacted by a few students in Dar es Salaam who want to apply to universities in the US. Where would you suggest they start? I do have to apologise for the noise outside my window suddenly, but I'm going to mute myself while you answer that question. But if a student who is anywhere in the world, but maybe doesn't have access to the sort of expertise that they might have in some places like the ALA, how could they go about themselves starting that sort of process?
I would say that it is a challenging thing to do because in the United States, they have close to 4,000 colleges and universities. So how do you narrow all of that down? There are some wonderful resources. International Association for College Admission Counseling has a wonderful resource. If finances are a concern, I believe on their website, they have posted a spreadsheet of colleges that do offer financial aid to international students. So I would also encourage students to begin with Google. What are you interested in studying? So how do you begin to narrow down all of those options? So there is on the College Board website a wonderful tool called Big Future, and that takes a huge funnel of the 4,000-ish colleges and universities, and then you put in various parameters. I want it to be in an urban area. I want a medium-sized school. I want this major. I have this SAT score, and so on and so forth. And the more criteria that you enter into the tool, it filters it down, and then it will give you a list of colleges that meet the criteria that are important to you. So Big Future, Google, International Association for College Admission Counseling. Those are just a few places to start. And then I would also just think about where have other students from your high school matriculated to in the States. That's always a great place to begin, because if they have done so, then they already know something about your high school. And so if they've already admitted somebody from your high school, that's a great place to start. And then often when you do a search, so let's say, for example, I don't know, the University of Delaware is a great school. I would recommend, if a student applies to the University of Delaware, where else are they applying? And a Google search will say, students who looked at this school are also looking at these 4 other schools. And then the more that you look at those schools, you'll get 4 additional schools, and so on and so on.
No, those are great tips. I do like Big Future actually, and I also like niche.com works quite well as well in a similar way, kind of filtering down on different criteria. And
If I can add one more
yeah,
thing.
sure.
I would also say to this counselor and to the student, do not limit your opportunities to the States. And I know that that's one of the areas that our students here struggle with. Many people view the States as the golden ticket. And don't get me wrong, we have some fantastic colleges and universities in the USA, but I would say be open. That's one of the things, one of the mantras that I've drilled into the students here at ALA. So for example, in the States, you might have schools that are also abroad. So for example, Georgetown in Qatar, that's a wonderful institution and students should absolutely consider applying there as well. So if you're looking at Georgetown in the USA, think also, where else do they have branch campuses? In Korea, for example, there are many US schools that have branches, if you will, in different countries. So just be open. And even if it's not a US school in another country, there are 17,000 people, colleges and universities worldwide. So don't limit yourself to a particular geographic region. I would encourage you to be open to where the possibilities and opportunities are.
Okay, some great tips there. I liked what you were saying earlier about using Google to find out if you're applying to one or thinking about one university, look at the other ones that that people went to. I think a really good book for that is the Fisk Guide to Colleges, the classic counselor's guide, that one, where if you realize that one university seems to fit you, it comes up with a list of other ones that also might fit you well. So any kind of guides like that are worthwhile. I guess the big question though is the one that we've already touched on, which is financial aid. And I think even with these search tools and books and things, it's still very difficult to work out whether or not you are going to be able to get money to go to that university. And I know that this topic is not something you can easily just answer just like that and go, well, you have to do this to get the money. But in terms of a student trying to research this themselves, do you have any suggestions about how they could go and find out what sort of places they might be eligible for money?
So I mentioned the list that is put out through International ACAC, but I would also say the best place, to be honest with you, to find those answers are on the individual websites of the various colleges and universities. I can't stress that enough, because you will read somewhere that, oh, so-and-so went there. And then the more that you read into the website, do they provide scholarships for international students? And so you might hear that someone got a great scholarship, but they might have a criteria that you have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident. You also have to find out which colleges will meet 100% of a family's demonstrated need. And again, Google is a great place to begin with that. And so I just have my students, does X college provide aid for international students? And that is just a wonderful place to begin. But there are tools that have been created, and I always encourage people to go to International ACAC. They have so many wonderful resources, but the best place is really on the website of those colleges themselves. And you can pick up the phone, you can do admissions at many of the places and just pose that question. And when you find that answer, I would strongly encourage you to keep a spreadsheet, whether it's on a Google Sheet or on your own personal computer, so that as you do the research, you can say yes, no, yes, no. And if finances will be a particular criteria for you, then once you find that answer, you can add or remove colleges from your list based upon, or even if you don't remove them, at least lower their priority on your list based upon whether or not financial aid is provided to international students.
Yeah, those are great tips. Okay, someone has asked a question here, which is, what is your favorite thing about your job? The second part of the question was, what is it about the role that caught your eye? Now, I know you've already answered that, which is that you really want to be part of that mission. But once you're there, what is now your favorite part of the job?
I'll be honest with you, it's engaging with the students
Mm.
and just hearing their stories, where they've come from, some of the amazing things that they have done. And I am really inspired all the time by these students and the things that they have managed to do. So for example, some of you may have watched the movie The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. If you have, ALA student, right? Who later went on to Dartmouth. And guess what? The actor who played him in the movie, he's a current ALA student right now. I worked for 15 years in admissions. There were very few child actors that I knew, or students who had a movie made about them. I have a young man right now, for example, who already, I think he's 18 years old, has a patent for a biogas digester that helps to fuel and generate electricity. And I'm like, wait a minute, how old are you? And you already have a patent and you're not even 20 years old yet? I have another student who just graduated who has already written 3 books. I'm like, I've been dreaming about writing 1 book since I was in my 20s, and I haven't yet managed to accomplish that. How is it that you, before you're 20 years old, have published 3 books already? So these are students who are doing incredible things. There's a young woman who works with conservation of elephants, and she just graduated right now, and she's going to become a conservationist, protecting wildlife. And just these students are just inspiring is the word that I have to use, because I listen to them. Some of them come from very privileged backgrounds, I would say, but some of them also come from very modest backgrounds as well. But what they are all able to do just to get a space in the ALA class, I wake up and I can tell you in all honesty that I have not, it's only been 8 months, right? But I've not woken up one day and said, oh, I don't feel like going to work today. It's like, woo, I'm ready, bring it on. Let me have this challenge. How can I help these students? How can I help this wonderful organization to help fulfill their mission? So that really is the best part of my job. But other great aspects of my position are collaborating with my team members in the University Guidance Office. In fact, just before this session here, we had a Zoom meeting where we were planning the entire month of July and some courses, classes that we're going to be running with our students every single day for the entire month of July. And what are we going to teach them? And so there's all of this energy and there's a wonderful synergy amongst us. And so I'm inspired as well by my colleagues and working with the faculty who are here as they write their recommendation letters and just reading how much they care deeply about these students. I used to be a classroom teacher in a former life. I told you I had many lives before college admissions, but this was many moons ago. And there were some teachers who were there and it was a paycheck, right? They were doing it because they were going through the motions. Whereas these faculty members, they pour their heart and their soul into the students because they believe also firmly in the mission of the organization. So those are some things that I love about being here at ALA.
You're going to end up with a lot of applications for jobs at ALA after this.
Bring them on.
It sounds like an amazing place to work, especially with the students. And also, I really liked the campus when I went down there as well. So it's a really nice, kind of inclusive place to work. Also, physically organized around a kind of circle, isn't it? So
yes,
really conducive to people interacting all the time, which I really liked.
ALA has this incredible sense of community, and I've worked in many places that boast about community, and they do have it, but never have I worked at an institution where this sense of togetherness is so much a part of the fabric of the institution. Like you said, it is mirrored in the physical space. Even now when we are on lockdown, we continue to have weekly assemblies where we gather together. I have to tell you, we had our graduation just this past Thursday, and I never knew that a virtual graduation would make me feel so connected to the community. We were dancing together, even though I was here in my apartment, the students are on campus, somebody else is in the US, somebody else is in another country, but there was this strong sense of community where we were able to dance together and cry together. And the parents are deeply connected to this place as well. And we have bi-weekly calls with parents because they are so invested in the future, the present and the future of their children. And they are supportive of the administration here. And so, I'm sorry, I'm gushing too much. Let me tone down a little bit.
It's completely understandable. Okay, we have another question here, a really great question, which is, you talked earlier about the three core courses that that it's built around at ALA. How did ALA decide upon them? Because they seem to be quite well matched to the US in terms of liberal arts kind of philosophy.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, the core course about entrepreneurial leadership, it is essential for the mission of the organization because when the students come back, they may find that in their respective countries, the jobs that they want have not yet been created. And so they are going to have to learn to think creatively about how do I form a corporation? How do I create a business where the infrastructure simply is not there? So we have to be able to give them the practice to be able to do that now. They have to have the theory and they have to have the practice, and then they have to have the experience so that when they come back, if they return to Democratic Republic of Congo or Somalia, and those opportunities are not there, that they will have the experience. It's not here, but I know how to create something out of nothing. So that is key for us. That is by and large a large percentage of where our students spend their time in the curriculum. And then African studies. To be honest with you, even though our students, the vast majority of them are from the continent of Africa, many of them know their own countries, but they don't necessarily know the history. They don't know the culture. They don't know the politics of other countries here on the continent. And so it is essential, if we're hoping to develop leaders who will go on to change the continent, it is essential and vital that they know about the rest of the continent. And so they're going to be collaborating when they return on various programs, and they're going to bring lasting peace to the continent. How can they do that unless they know what their current enemies may be doing, right? And so this program in African studies is essential for the mission. And then writing and rhetoric. We know that any good leader has to know how to present themselves well. They have to be able to write well, to speak well, to think creatively. And like you said, these are key tenets of a liberal arts education. And so we want the students to develop those skills here in high school before they go on to college, so that they can use that to help them to be more successful students when they do go away to university. It was very intentional. And then the Cambridge A levels, well, it's well respected worldwide. And so while some colleges may not recognize the ALA curriculum, they do know Cambridge. And so even though it is arduous on the students, they have to be hardworking students to be able to manage two different curricula simultaneously. That's something that we know they will be prepared for whatever colleges throw at them, because they've done so much rigorous work here.
And is it really the case that they're doing the ALA curriculum on top of, how many A levels would they be doing?
The vast majority of students will take 2 to 3 A levels while they are here.
Okay, and then they've got the ALA curriculum on top of that.
Yes, they do.
And was there a reason that
They go to class 6 days a week during the regular term.
It suddenly doesn't sound so good anymore?
If you want to come to ALA, you have to be willing to work. And the classes start early in the morning. They go until the afternoon. They break for some sports or meetings, clubs and organizations. And then after dinner, they come back, and then they have time where they have structured study time, where they go until 9 p.m. So if you don't want to work hard, please don't apply to ALA. But if you're willing to make that investment of time and energy and effort, this is definitely a great place to consider.
Okay, great. And was there a reason that the school didn't opt for the IB curriculum? Why did they choose A-level over IB?
You know, I am not the right person to ask that question. I don't know, but what I can do is I can reach out to the founder and ask him, and then I'll send you an email, and then you could post it for your listeners.
Oh, I would appreciate that. Yes, just curiosity, really. I'm trying to think of what other things I wanted to ask you. I had a whole list of mental questions, but Marilyn, is there anything that I've missed out that I should have asked you about, either about yourself or about ALA?
Well, you did mention you wanted to learn. Well, I already talked about some of the previous lives that I've had.
You did allude to being a classroom teacher. What did you used to teach?
I used to teach Spanish as well as English. And while I worked in Korea, I was a faculty member at a university there in my second year, whereas in my first year, I worked for the Ministry of Education, as I mentioned, where I was actually training Korean teachers of English, which was a phenomenal job and a great opportunity. Wow. It was one of the best experiences, I would have to say, of my life.
Really fantastic. And how long were you there for in Korea?
I was there for almost 2 years.
Okay. I've never visited Korea. I really want to go because I spent much of my life doing Taekwondo, which of course is a Korean martial art. So I do feel like I need to do a pilgrimage to South Korea at some point.
I would highly recommend it. It's a beautiful country, wonderful people. As I said, one of the best experiences of my life.
Sounds amazing. And they get lots of snow in the winter, which
they do. But I worked and lived in Maine for 5 years. So I grew up in Connecticut, worked in Massachusetts, worked in Pennsylvania. So I'm not a stranger to snow, even though I was born on the island of Jamaica.
Okay, well, it's quite a change then being in Johannesburg, because they don't get too much snow in the winter.
No, I haven't seen any snow yet in winter, but I was surprised when it was 1 degree centigrade just a few days ago. And that was shocking. I was sitting around my heater for most of the day. But I've been told that that's typical here in the winter time. So I'm grateful for days like today where the weather is far more temperate.
Yeah. Well, I could talk for ages about hiking in the mountains around Lesotho, and there's plenty of snow up there, I'll tell you. But
oh, really? Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, you have to pick your time to go there, otherwise it could be pretty cold. Great. Well, I'm just going to check to see if we've. We do have a question here. There is someone here from Mauritius who would like to learn more about ALA. How can they get in contact with you? Now, you've already given the website address, and we'll give that again at the end. But is there an email address for ALA or for yourself that they can get in touch with? Sure.
If you'd like to contact ALA in general and they can farm out your question to the right people, simply info@africanleadershipacademy.org. Or if you'd like to email me directly, you can send an email to mscott@africanleadershipacademy.org. And if I'm not able to answer your questions, I'll be more than happy to forward your contact information to the appropriate department so that they can address whatever your query happens to be.
Great. So I've just replied to this person to say there's info@africanleadershipacademy.org. and that will get to someone at least.
Yes.
Great. The last question I do have for you, though, Marilyn, is what are the ambitions of ALA now in terms of expanding, or what are their plans for the future?
Sure. So we currently have the capacity to hold 130 students in each incoming class. And typically we've been around, I would say, between 110 to 115. So we are hoping to grow enrollment by about 15 students or so in each incoming class. So that is one of the goals of the institution. In terms of my role, I am hoping to expand the number of colleges and universities to which our students apply. As I mentioned, there are 17,000 of them worldwide. And so if I can get more people to understand just what a dynamic place ALA is and how incredibly talented and how much potential our students have, I really want them to spread their wings. So for example, very few of our students currently go to Australia or New Zealand. I don't know why not, but that's something that I'm hoping to change in the future. We just started a conversation with Binus in Indonesia, and she recently heard about us. So, and she mentioned that there are other schools in the region. So I want our students to be able to spread their wings and to go all over the world, because there are so many great universities. And so personally, for my department, that's the goal. But the larger institutional goal is to continue to grow enrollment.
Okay, great. I'm really excited to see what your students end up doing in the future, and where they end up, hopefully back on the continent of Africa, inspiring the next generation, and doing wonderful things, some of which you've already mentioned. So I will leave it there. I'll just finish by saying, if people want to learn more about the African Leadership Academy, that website again is www.africanleadershipacademy.org. And if you want to email them for more information, it's info@africanleadershipacademy.org. But for now, Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been able to pretend just for a few minutes that I was back in Johannesburg, and I hope to be back there physically again one day soon, when we're all allowed to travel again. But
Jason,
thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your program. It has been a delight chatting with you and sharing a little bit about and we hope that you will be able to come back soon. Know that you are welcome at any time.
Thank you so much. Right, so I'm going to end the live broadcast there, and but hopefully we can continue chatting, Marilyn. But thank you to everyone who's been listening, and if you do have any questions, feel free to comment on the video, or contact ALA or myself for anything that you might need. Thanks everyone for listening.